Hi, everybody. Welcome to tonight's episode of Ramblemancy. We are here with our guest, Rick Budd. Rick, welcome.
Hello.
It is,
Thank you for having me.
yeah, it's amazing to have you here. Before we get into tonight's episode, I'm pretty sure we don't have big announcements. Everything that we've got is just it's just programming as usual. We're coasting on into our season break, um, as it
Really
should
are.
be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah. The announcements for today is that everything is basically like schedule as normal. Um, but I'm gonna probably keep reminding everybody about the Mass Effect Saturdays because that's a relatively new thing that we're doing. So that's happening tomorrow night. I will be joined on stream for our charity event fulfillment of me playing through all of Mass Effect Legendary Edition. I'll be joined by Cole Morale, who many of you may know from Into Deep, and from Friends Who Roll Dice. So yeah, that'll be happening tomorrow. I feel like, as I always do, like I am forgetting something, but I'm sure, as I always do, I will remember it hours after we have gone offline. So I will just ping everybody in the Discord. I will I won't do that. Um,
uh,
Oh,
I,
yes, Edge of It. Thank you so much. See, chat is on top of it. There is no In Too Deep on Tuesday. This on the 29th, there will be no In Too Deep. They are taking 1 week break as they've got some players missing, and then they will be back for their finale on July 6th, theoretically. So don't hold us to that because no. That is when I have been assured that it will happen. So, all right. I think that's everything. So let's get into tonight's episode, as we often do, by throwing John under the bus. John, what do you got for us?
I was taking a
I
drink.
know that's
I was
specifically why I
taking a
picked that moment.
drink.
That is specifically why I picked that moment. You kind of did that to yourself. So
Just in the middle of a man's
you
backswing.
you just
Um,
gave me an opportunity. I took it and I ran with it.
anyway, no, tonight we're talking about superheroes and the superhero genre, and I feel like there's just such a phenomenal, like just incredible amount to unpack about this. Um, that like frankly, I don't know where to begin.
Yeah.
Um,
I do.
Yes,
you
Freeman.
do?
You know where to
Yes, I
begin?
do. This is the most important
Okay.
question. You think about it all the time, whether you're
Mm-hmm.
playing games or not. But you've probably thought about this and wondered, what superpower do you want in real life?
Ooh.
That's a good question to start off.
Freeman with the hard-hitting questions right off the bat.
I can't wait to see chat's answers to this.
Yeah.
And yes, chat, get on this, please.
Oh man.
Like that's it's the hardest question. I'm going to assume that we're going to take off like omniscient type power, like omnipotent type powers, or
Mhm.
power cosmic or something where it's like, yeah, the power that lets me do all the powers. It
Right.
feels like a
That's
cheating
sure.
kind of
yeah, that's
answer,
yeah. I think that's a bit of a
Um,
cop out answer. Unless you have something
man,
very interesting that you could yeah, something very interesting to bring to that one. I'd say yeah.
I always think of like Dr. Manhattan from Watchmen, who's just like, I have all the power in the universe. I am the only omnipotent man in existence, and I'm going to use that to not wear pants.
Truly a legendary
Just
act. Like um
I am omnipotent, and therefore pants are an illusion, and so is death. Like, oh my god, one of my
yes.
favorite, one of my all-time favorite moments. I think for me, and it's like, and I just had a similar question at the Power Play Q&A that which I forgot to answer personally, but I had been preparing my answer for.
Mm.
But I think they're obviously really tempting stuff like flight and invisibility are usually like the kind of go-tos and stuff. But I think for me, it's teleportation would be what I would want. It's like I one, I'm incredibly lazy. So it's just like the ability, like, boom, you're at the refrigerator, boom, you're back on the couch, boom, it's like, and like, I cannot tell you how often I don't do something because I just don't want to travel to wherever. So it's like just the ability to be like, Gen Con, yeah, boom, I'm there, and
Totally.
But also like just from a superhero-y perspective, from like a non, practical day-to-day stuff, it's like I I fancy myself a writer, and one of the things that I have sitting in my drawers, I wrote a screenplay for the rather obscure DC superhero Ambush Bug. And Ambush Bug is a little bit of a comedy superhero. It's a lot of a comedy superhero, but basically he's a teleporter. And so when I was writing it, like I spent a ton of time thinking about everything you can do with teleportation. And it is such an incredibly versatile power if you're creative enough, and it works the way it worked in my script. Which you can never guarantee these things, but it's like, yeah, it's like teleporters. It's like, you think of like teleporter combat, or the ability to like get on somebody's back, without them knowing you're there. Then they try and pick and throw you away. And it's like poof, poof, you're right back there.
Mhm.
The ability, like someone's trying to smash you in a wall, so you just pop you and that person to the other side of the wall. It's like you can basically make yourself like untouchable and ungrabbable, and you can, even fighting a much tougher opponent, you can get them with one of these like death from a thousand blows type things, even if you're not nearly as tough as they are, because they just can't ever get their hands on you. And yeah, I mean, I could go on and on, but this is hardly the time or the place to ramble. So
Yeah, no, we don't do that here. We don't do that on this show.
well, I don't know. What about
Rails?
you? What about you guys?
I think
Mhm.
so like again, like I'm always flight is definitely a like a personal power fantasy of mine. I would love that, like having the freedom to be able to fly or to teleport, right? Or especially I just love the sensation of flying. I like swimming for many, like for many of the same reasons, but like I feel like that one's like I feel like a very common choice. I think the one that I like the most, and this is a character that I've played in a couple of versions in TTRPGs too, is in the comic, I think it's Boom Comics, the Backstagers, they find a sketchbook, and if they draw something in the sketchbook, it become like they can draw it into real life. And if I could have a superpower, I'd pick that superpower every day. um
That's a cool choice.
Yeah.
yeah, like to be able to, or like to be able to like write or draw something into existence, that to me would be so cool, just to like be able to put a pencil to here and then just whoop right into reality.
I can't draw anything, so I'd be bringing to life all this stuff that just looks like crap, just
It's like
stick
that sponge,
figures and
like that sponge,
misshapen dogs.
like that SpongeBob episode where,
Honestly, yeah,
the
Frank can do
little
those.
stick SpongeBob.
That's a good one, but I was kind of more going in the direction of like the good place, drawing like giraffe, or was it a horse or something that was just horrendous. Like it was just
Mhm.
like, that haunts my nightmares. That
Love that show.
I love
Oh
that
my
show
god.
too.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Man, those are some good ones. Honestly, I think I can mark several stages in my life by the answer to this that I would have given to this question at those times. Like there was definitely a time when I'm like, oh yeah, flight, no question. And then there was like, ah yes, teleportation, it makes perfect sense. Now I think I just actually I like this is less of like this is maybe a cheat answer, but like I think I would just want to actually just have the Flash's powers. Like,
Mhm.
and like, I say it's maybe a cheat answer because, like, yeah, you say, oh yeah, the Flash's powers is super speed, but he does a lot of other stuff too. So, like, yeah, I think what I'm saying here is I think I just want to be the Flash. That's what I think I'm saying here.
It's respectable. Like, honestly, who would not want to be the Flash?
Yeah, exactly.
True.
Favorite superhero, right here, the Flash.
I feel like you have to go through a phase at least once where you're like, man, it would be cool to be the Flash. Like,
Freeman.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, I suppose I have an answer. I think. I, I keep getting stuck on this one. First of all, I thought of one right now, and it's like shape shifting, which is cool. idea. Just like being able to look like anybody as long as you've studied their mannerisms and their face for long enough, you be them. But the one I originally thought of actually was like having the ability to blend in with your environment like a chameleon.
I'm laughing because I mean, you
Oh my
kind of are
God.
doing that.
I know, that's why
So
I'm probably stuck on that right now.
For context, Rick, Freeman is in the process of, just as like a hobby project, making a ghillie suit for himself.
Yes.
So
Wow.
yeah.
Yes.
So that's
And I was feeling like a big man because I managed to hang this light diffuser on my light, but that's way more impressive.
I'll tell you, it's a project, and the journey. You can see the journey on Twitter.
yeah. Yeah.
Do you have the hat like in arm's reach?
Always.
Always.
Well, almost always. Am
I
I
feel
gonna
like-
put this on right now? Okay.
I feel like every episode of Ramblemancy is just a countdown to see what bizarre thing Freeman has within arm's reach.
Oh shoot!
I feel like I would notice you if you were wearing that hat.
You would probably, because I'm not in the woods, but
Oh, okay.
but also so this is so it's funny that I talk about chameleon because
Right, yeah.
I guess you're right, I am kind of already
You're in the
doing
process
this
of giving
thing.
yourself that power.
So I'm in the process. Yeah, there's more to this, of course.
Oh,
Yeah. So basically, man, this is really warm. This was a poor time to put this thing on. This is jute, which is plant based. It's plant fiber, and I'll tell you, it's really warm. So I'm gonna take it off now. But there's other things that go into it to make it look more like you're nothing and not just like a Wookiee jute suit thing going on here. But so yeah, chameleon powers.
that's
And
a
I
cool
would-
choice also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder what would happen. Would your clothes blend with you, or would you have to get a specific suit?
See, that's the
that
thing.
would blend
that's
with?
the thing. There's always that,
yeah.
or you could be like, oh God, my brain is blanking. Where you just have to be naked.
Yeah, like the Invisible
What's
Man,
her
right?
Yeah.
What's her name in X-Men?
Is that true?
She's a shapeshifter.
Wait, I don't know who you're talking about now.
Sue Storm.
No. Oh God, I can't remember. Their.
I don't remember. I don't know who you're talking about now.
They're usually like a blue.
Oh, Mystique.
Yeah.
Mystique. Is that what you're talking
Mystique.
about? Okay,
Yeah.
That's the
Oh.
one.
yeah. Right.
Thank you, chat. This is why we have chats. You're reminded. of the
Collectively,
names
chat
that I
is smarter at any given time than we are as individuals.
Yeah, I told you my brain's not working this
Oh.
week, so you caught me. Yeah, on the wrong. Yeah.
we joke oftentimes that the staff at Rule of Lore just kind of pass around a single brain cell that we all
Yeah,
share.
I've been meaning to talk to you all about that because I haven't gotten it for 2 weeks. So
It's not over
Well,
here.
I don't know
swear.
where it is.
you
so-
misplaced the one brain cell. Yeah, man. Okay, so that's interesting. Not that because I think I've never been one of the the DC versus Marvel type people. I've never been that. I like things from either. I like things from either and both. I prefer DC's superhero stories and some of those things. That's but that's only because that's what I know about, right? And I feel like that's so much of people's preference, the thing that they know the most about, and they just kind of hold on to that. I've been enjoying a lot of the stuff that's been coming out of Marvel lately, but I can't help but feel a little lost in the woods whenever some of the references come up where I'm like, am I supposed to know what that is? Am I supposed to know who that is? That kind of stuff. So, yeah, I don't know. I feel like everybody kind of has that spectrum, right? So, Rick, where do you land anywhere in particular on this, the DC Marvel spectrum, appreciation spectrum?
I mean, I was reading comic books for basically as long as my memory goes back, and it's I am not super picky. I mean, I used to just walk to a comic book store. I was a lonely kid, so it's I used to walk to the comic book store and I would spend a lot of time there digging through 25-cent bins and stuff and read whatever the hell was in there. Ghost Rider 72 from back in the 70s, odd issues of stuff that I hadn't read the runs for. Like it didn't matter. It's like Archie's, Amethyst Princess of Gem World, you name it. If it was published in that form, whatever, I'll read anything. So it's like I read just a ton of both Marvel and DC, starting right from the beginning. It's weird. It's like I would say probably I have been more consistently a fan of like the tone of Marvel stuff, but really just because I've found that like the tone of DC's comic books sort of changes a lot more frequently over the course of the years, whereas like Marvel, for the most part, has been a little more steady. It's like the Marvel universe kind of always feels like the Marvel universe. They got that like heroes with feet of clay thing going on. And like the DC universe, they keep doing these like, Crisis on Infinite Earth and Final Crisis, and then everything gets reborn and it suddenly has a whole new tone and a whole, characters' origins all change. And sometimes I kind of like that stuff and I dig all the changes they make. And sometimes I'm sort of just like, yeah, this is too grimdark for me, or this is too, or this is now too confusing and plot driven or something, but I love a ton of characters from both of them. It's like, I mean, when I was a little kid, really little, it was like, I love, Superman. And it was just, I'm old. So it's like, this is before there was like a King's Ransom in comic book movies to choose from. So it was like Christopher Reeve Superman movies, when I was a kid, and it's like, reruns of the old George Reeves as Superman in black and white TV show, which is like, even, it was obviously super dated even when I was a kid, but like, I'm not that old, but like, but I still just anything that had that character in it, just really appealed to me. And I was also, tremendously into Captain Marvel, who is now Shazam.
Oh, that Captain Marvel.
Yes.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I have this one right now.
That's great. Oh, well, I'm into all the Captains Marvel.
Yes.
See, I've got my little, my Marvel, and I keep him here by the desk because he was my favorite Marvel superhero for a very long time. And that's like a whole other thing. It's like,
Right.
I used to like it was those two characters, kind of like Shazam and Superman, just like sort of the flying Men of Steel kind of, and I just, I ate that up when I was a kid. And like, the Bill Bixby Incredible Hulk, and then, Michael Keaton's Batman and stuff came along, but it was like, so, all those characters, I mean, except for Hulk, obviously, it's like Shazam, is now a DC character, Superman a DC character, Batman a DC character. So like my early loves were mostly like DC, but I don't know, when I actually started becoming a little bit more choosy and like buying my own comics and picking stuff, like I think Spider-Man became my favorite character. Like, just so relatable, it's like, it's in so many ways, and perpetual underdog who always finds a way to come out on top, and he's kind of got that kiddish side to him, but is not treated, it's not treated like a kiddie comic or anything. And when that happened, it's like, my focus more fell on the characters that he interacted with. So I learned a lot about Thor and Iron Man and the X-Men and stuff, and and I love all those characters and stuff. It's like but yeah, it's like, I don't really pick my company so much.
Yeah.
It's more like, the character, who's writing the character. It's like the right writer could make any character interesting. It's like the right writer can make Aquaman talking to fish fascinating. It's like, all right, maybe not, but no offense, we love you, Aquaman. But it's like, yeah, I don't know. It's like, I guess maybe slightly to the Marvel side, but yeah, I've never really seen it as like this like gang war between like Marvel and DC, which just seems kind of stupid. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's like Geekouts in chat actually said the way I feel about DC versus Marvel is how I feel about Star Trek versus Star Wars. I like both. I've never understood why people argued about it. I agree. Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. Like, that's
yeah.
Yeah.
I totally feel that. With Star Trek and Star Wars also, it's like
Mhm.
I deeply love both of those universes.
Mhm.
And,
They're
you
just
know,
they're just so different. Like I don't understand why
yeah,
we have to argue about that.
Exactly.
Like
and love them for what makes them
Yeah.
different. Yeah, sorry.
I was just say, like, the only similarity really between those two things is that they happen in space sometimes, and they have the word star
Yeah.
Mhm.
as the first word of the title. And I feel like that's like just about the only reason that the two are conflated, because they're so very, very different, like tonally and then like genre, like drastically different.
Yeah, it's just something about that, that binary where it's like you have two options for something and everyone wants to see them fight,
Yes.
So it's like Coke versus Pepsi, Star Wars versus Star Trek, and it's
Yeah.
like, I mean, everything, it's like pick the two famous bands playing in the same, genre of music, and everyone's like, oh, this band's better than that band. And I don't know. It's kind of, you're like, it's not sports, man. You can
Yeah.
like both Metallica and Megadeth or whatever, you're.
Yeah.
Hell, even with sports, you can like both teams.
Yeah.
Now they'll kill you if you come to the stadium and say that.
That's true.
Yeah, show up to like a Vikings versus Packers game. You're like, I'm really a fan of both teams, and then just
I
like
just
be
had, like,
thrown from the bleachers.
two of my favorite, so back like when I was when I was in college, and like Super Bowl would come around, right? There was a certain section of the college that would just become very, very loud, both online and physically in real life too. And it was always so funny to me because two of the best things that I saw, like commentaries that I saw people make about the Super Bowl taking place, wildly drastically opposed, but one of them was, I just hope both teams have fun. And then the other one and the other one was, I hope both teams lose, which cracked me up because the idea, just picturing that, is very funny to me. Like a circumstance in which somehow at the Super Bowl, the crowning moment of the NFL for the year, somehow both teams lose, and the absurdity of that cracks me up every time. And
Must be like that Simpsons where like Principal Skinner, is like shopping for nonpartisan election buttons. He's like, do you have anything, may the best man win. Let's have a good, clean election.
yeah, absolutely. same
I
same
want a
energy.
nice, clean game.
Yeah, I think I saw both of those on the same day from two people who were friends, and I'm like, this is just a dichotomy of your personalities right here, just laid out. I just hope both teams have fun, and I hope both teams lose.
But yeah, like with Marvel versus DC, I've always wondered, it's like, when people are like really allegiant to one, it's like, I'm always just like, well, why would you want less options?
Right.
It's like, if you're not interested, just, wait around and see what they're doing 5 years from now. Maybe they'll come up with something you like, but it's just like, people are just like, no, it just annoys me knowing that it's out there and existing, it's like.
Yeah, it's like when people talk about like a newer film. Like, listen, I'm not gonna at anybody publicly here, but like when somebody like a newer film, a newer iteration in a franchise has ruined the other ones for them, I'm like, how? They're still over there. You can watch them whenever you want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah, I think you get a lot of that, like right on Twitter, where it's just like, this movie ruined my childhood or whatever, and it's just sort of like, no, it didn't.
I don't. And if it did, then I think you have different problems than the movie. I think that's a whole. If somehow that one movie ruined your entire childhood,
your childhood was pretty fucked up to begin with, probably.
Yeah.
Is that because it's like, yes, it's like, just don't go see the movie, or just forget about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. To be fair, EduFit says, to be fair, more options means more cash. I can't afford to like both. Fair.
Yeah, that is the thing. And
yeah.
Comics has become a crazy expensive hobby. I will definitely give credit to that, where it's like, if your argument is like, hey, I want one company making two titles because that's all I could afford, I won't argue with you there. It's like, and especially where it's like, now they know how to get you, it's like they've learned over the years. Like, it used to just be like, you read the titles you like, and every once in a while some other character would appear in the title, and now it's like 5 new X-Men series are coming out, and the storyline runs through all 5 at once. So if you want to know what's going on and follow it, you've got to read each of the 5, and they all cost $4 an issue and come out twice a month. And it's just like,
Could you?
it gets a little
That's
mad. Yeah.
that's so funny to me, right? Because could you imagine that mentality or that approach to like TTRPG streams? Could you imagine? Like nobody would watch them ever. Nobody would watch anything. Like there might be like 1 or 2 people who would like just get really into it and go, but like nobody would. It's yeah.
It's it's tough because like I think there are certainly people who love the feeling of all my comics interconnect
Yeah.
and form one giant universe, and if I read them all I'm getting a bigger picture of whatever. But it's like, given how expensive comics have become, it sort of becomes one of these kind of especially like they're putting out a new event every twice a year, so it's like the DC's doing like 2 crises a year, and it's like Marvel's it's got all these events happening, the mutants repeatedly having all these crossover events and stuff, and it's like you know if you're going to read it, now you have to follow that event through like 90 titles that it's like, we're doing Secret Wars. It's going to affect our entire line. So if you want to know what's going on, you got to buy an issue of literally everything we published this month.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, so full disclosure, I've never been like somebody who's like into comics, and it's not because I am not interested. It's because of exactly what you just explained. Like, it's overwhelming. One, not knowing where to start is one thing. And 2, it's just, there's so much, and especially if, like, as you say, that they're kind of pivoting more to that kind of model of like, that feels like not exactly entry friendly. So
it's like you need a good comic shop or like some good online friend who could tell you, because it's like some books are designed to be good entry points and to be very insulated from the rest of universes, like and then it gets hard to kind of pick those out. If even if you know what you're doing, it can be hard to find those, but like there are some good vloggers and stuff who keep a close eye on comics and can tell you what the good entry points are. And I'm always a big fan of the good old fashioned, just like walk in, buy something, jump in the deep end, and if you like it, buy the next issue with that title on it, and find the back issues if you want. It's like it happens, and plus it's like I don't know, it's weird. It's like the way I used to like go into 25-cent bins and just pull like, some random issues of some old run that I've never read or character I'd never heard of. And it's like, it kind of gets like your writer brain working, as you're sort of just like, all right, I have absolutely no idea how Captain Marvel got into this situation. Probably was something like, and then you start making up your own story, and like before you know it, it's like, yeah, you're just filling in the blanks for yourself and just writing your own story. Then years later you find out what it really was, and you're like, oh man, my version was so much better.
That's really interesting, and like you do raise a good point though, right? Because I think about all the number of times where in my life where I've jumped into something, whether it was a show, like a TV show, or whether it was like a book series or something, like where I jumped in the middle of it and was perfectly fine. I was able to pick up things from context clues. I was able to like kind of extrapolate what was going on based on that. Sometimes I would go and like read, like if it was usually books, I'd go back and read like the books that came before. I'm like, oh, I get it now. This makes a lot more sense, kind of contextualizing that whole thing. Now I get it. And weirdly, sometimes in a way that like I wouldn't have if I'd read them in chronological order. Because now I know what's coming. And so I can be like, oh, I can see them setting that up. And I think about all the times where I've done that, and it kind of makes me feel a bit ridiculous thinking about all the times when I have chosen not to get into something because I didn't know where to start and it felt like there was too much,
I mean, and you can always just think of it as like, we are so conditioned today to see prequels and sequels and sequels to prequels and prequels to sequels and stuff like that, that it's like jump in the middle of anything, and then when you finally find the beginning of it somewhere, just pretend that's the prequel, you
Yeah.
know, and just like read it like that. And it's like, I don't know, go off on like a huge, you know, nerd tangent here, but it's like, you know, I remember reading, you know, about the epic cycle, you know, the Greek epics like the Odyssey and the Iliad, right?
Mhm.
And then there were like the epic cycle, which were like these other epics which have all been lost now, that sort of take place before the Iliad, in the middle of the Odyssey and the Iliad, and then after the Odyssey, essentially filling in all the cracks, you know, almost like Lucasfilm style, like, you know, like where somebody made some story and then went back and was like, all right, I'm going to now make new stories that account for every unused bit of time in this universe. And like, those are all lost now, and we only know so much about them. But it's like, from what we do know about them, I know there's been like a long ongoing sort of debate in academia. It's like nobody really exactly knows whether the Odyssey and the Iliad were written kind of, you know, which one came first, you know, essentially, like, were the epic cycle stories written with the Odyssey and the Iliad a part of them? Were the Odyssey and the Iliad written to be slotted into breaks in the epic cycles? Or were the epic cycles written afterwards and just plugged into the holes? You know, it's
Right.
like, it's basically impossible to tell, you know, and it's like, I don't know, you know, how important is it? It's like, if something is one just big giant story, then, you know, to a certain extent, you should be able to plop down at any point and, you know, find
Yeah.
your bearings.
Human brains really like puzzles and patterns, and we're
They really do.
extremely good at putting them together. So I think we just don't give ourselves enough credit.
Oh, absolutely.
I think
Yeah.
we just don't give ourselves enough credit for being able to piece together what's going on.
Yeah, and it's like, again, it's like, you know, it's exercise for your creative brain to just kind of like, you know, figure out, oh, that guy hates that guy. Oh, I wonder what happened there, and you start like imagining stuff, and you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually had I had a kind of a different pivoting a little bit. I had a different question, and like I formulated from intentionally trying to avoid the obvious and sort of, I think, not very interesting question, which is, in this case, like, who's your favorite superhero, right? Instead, the question that I'm gonna kind of pull from that is like, what what do you like in superheroes? Like, what are traits, characteristics, storylines, whatever it is, that what are things that you like? Chat, you too. This is for you too. But yeah, like, what are things that you like? What makes a good superhero story in your opinion? Like, what do you like?
Man, that's a tough question.
That's a doozy.
I'm bringing my English major brain. I don't have the rule of lore brain cell, but I do have the English major brain I can fall back on. So
Damn.
Yeah, that's
I actually, I'll start with mine, because I said earlier that the Flash is my favorite superhero, and one of the things I love about the Flash is that there have been I don't remember where it is, but somewhere Batman is quoted as saying, like, Bruce Wayne is quoted as saying that, like, Wally West, Flash, that he was like the heart of the Justice League. He's the one that kind of kept them all together. He was the one who he was the best of all of them, basically, right? He's the one who, like, which I think is incredible, right? Because you've got Superman, who's this like paragon of, like, you know, truth and justice and all that sort of stuff, right? But then to say that the Flash, the everyday, you know, like the everyman, right? The kind of just street level kind of hero, that he was the one. There's even like a storyline where I think this is from the comics, but I know that it's in it. I think it was adapted into Justice League animated series or Justice League Unlimited. I don't remember exactly which one. Where there is a parallel reality. Yeah, where there's a parallel reality where Wally West dies, and the Justice League becomes the Justice Lords, and they become this like tyrannical over like yeah, it's like this tyrannical government ruling from the Watchtower, and like ostensibly for peace and whatever. And the Batman from that universe cites Wally's death as being the thing, like, if like this would never have happened if Wally was still here. Like, Wally would have been able to stop this from happening, kind of thing, right? And to me, I think that's so powerful that, like, because as you mentioned before, Rick, like DC is more of like the more more like the gods, right? It's like the gods struggling with being human rather than Marvel, which is kind of the other way around. Like humans trying like struggling with like their kind of god, right? Like that kind of dichotomy. And to have these, these gods say that the best one of them is the most human of them all is like that to me. That's why I love the Flash. So yeah.
Good answer, and that's a great storyline. And yeah, Justice League and Justice League Unlimited are like some of the best superhero adaptations
Yeah.
like in the freaking
I
universe.
love that show though. Yeah, they're incredible.
So good. Yeah. I don't know. For me, it's like, I mean, this is tough. And this is one of those questions where it's like 10 minutes from now, I'm going to be like, oh, damn it. I got a better answer for that. I'll be thinking about it for a week. But it's like, I sort of feel like, it is watching people sort of struggle, like work to figure out what the right thing to do is and then to do the right thing. Especially when that person is a person, with power. So, essentially it's like the condition of being a superhero means that your choices are going to matter on a huge scale, and so it's sort of like it immediately amplifies like the consequences of whatever decision you make. And watching, essentially, man, this is like such a tough question. It's like watching essentially like, right, both like the regular people, Peter Parker struggling, with great responsibility, and then watching like Superman, trying to figure out, all right, well, I'm a god. What do I do with all that? It's like, it is watching them, it is watching them be concerned with what is the good thing, what is the right thing. And like in well-constructed stories, what the right thing is not always obvious. And there are usually, whatever choice you make, you're going to have to live with some, some consequence of that. And I sort of like, I don't know, there is something about, the appeal of like, I mean, I don't know. I guess the basic fantasy of comic books, going right back to like Siegel and Shuster creating Superman, is that like, what if somebody with power actually gave a shit, and used that power to do something good to help people instead of just screwing everybody all the time. And that is literally like a genre of fiction, right? Like superhero is a genre of fiction. What if powerful people did good things is a genre of fiction. And it's like, a comment I continuously make when I watch like superhero movies and stuff is like, everything in the movie is true except for the superhero. It's like, you watch Superman and you're like, Lex Luthor, there are guys like that in the world, 100%. Rich, powerful assholes trying to dominate the universe, use technology to get everybody, want to be in charge of everything. It's like, yeah, it's like, there are intrepid reporters like Lois Lane and newspapers like the Daily Planet, but everything is real except for the powerful dude at the heart of the story who's trying to do the right thing. He's the fiction, and it's like, I sort of like, for me, it's like, yeah, it's like introducing that idea to people that it's like your decisions matter, and figuring out what the right thing to do is worth struggling for, even if it is not pure, and even if you'll never be sure you nailed it. It's, it is the right direction to be trying to go in. I don't know. It's yeah. Now I'm turning into Babblemancy.
That is no, that's a good answer too. Yeah. Sorry, John.
Well, like,
you were gonna say?
And just like my thoughts on this one is just like kind of tying what you've both said together, but like the stories like the superhero genre, or like fantasy too, like anything where like the heroes are given a significant amount of power, like it's so often, I think, in well-written stories is a way to examine their kind of like the characters kind of like essential humanity. Like what are these problems that we as people, as humans, face, and then we blow up the magnitude a bunch of that, like of that a whole bunch, to somebody who is like a paragon of this particular, like Superman, like a paragon of virtue. Like how does this person deal with these things, like, or on a scale that is like very different, or even one that's very close to home, right? How does somebody with these incredible superpowers deal with something that is kind of the same as what I here at home am going through? And like that's like right all the way back to like the Odyssey and the Iliad. Like you can look at people going like, how do I deal with being lonely and missing home, you know, with like, particularly with the Odyssey, right? So I don't know, like that's I think that to me is one of the things that is like that I really like about like a well-told superhero story, is like the way that it exaggerates or like examines like essential human experiences through the lens of somebody who has the power to, you know, act on them, or like make the world change in those ways.
Absolutely. And it's like one of those things where it's like, you know, and that's why I love there being a million different superheroes told, you know, by a million different writers, is that like they each one, you know, kind of finds their own way into that humanity, where it's like, you know, Peter Parker's with great power comes responsibility, or Superman's, you know, I am the perfect God, you know, how can I use that? Can I actually use that to make a difference in the world, or you know, or the world's problems too big or something like that, you know, or like, you know, from the perspective of like a Wolverine or a Punisher or something, where it's like, okay, I'm not the best guy in the world. Does that mean I can't still do good for people? You know, does being a bad person in a lot of ways mean all I can do is bad, or can I struggle against the worst parts of my own nature to make positive difference even for other people? And like, you know, one of the things I used to love about, you know, my man Marvel here is like Captain Marvel 29, one of my favorite issues of anything ever, back from, you know, God, the late 60s, early 70s. I can't even remember the date anymore. Written by Jim Starlin, you know, creator of Thanos and stuff. He's sort of zapped off to this other part of the universe. 50-year-old spoilers. Basically, like the Avengers mansion caves in on him, and he's trapped under the rubble, and suddenly he's whisked off to the other part of the universe by this sort of weird alien creature who's kind of like this, you know, kind of all-knowing Yoda, you know, guru type, and puts him through his sort of paces where, like, you know, reminds him of all the bad things he's done as a soldier, but all the good things he's done as a superhero, and, you know, the people who he wasn't able to save, the people who he was able to save, and essentially all in the interest of turning him, you know, from his posture as a soldier to to a new posture of being a protector. And like, the way he does this is he gives him this new power called cosmic awareness, which is like always like I thought the coolest thing, which is essentially like, it's kind of like having Peter Parker's spider sense, but at a cosmic scale. You know, you can sense things that are important to you anywhere in the universe, detect dangers, weak spots in your opponents. But really, like, the power is just, you know, it's sort of like Zen is like a superpower. Like, the power is the power of being in tune with things. And like, you know, there's like a cute panel that I always loved where you know, Captain Marvel started off as he had silver hair, and then when he gets his new power, his hair changes to blonde. And Captain Marvel, when he, you know, first he says to this alien, he's just like, I don't get it. He's like, my costume's a little bit different, my hair's blonde now. And the alien's just like, see, you see stuff, but you don't understand. He's like, how do you know your hair is blonde without looking in a mirror? Captain Marvel's just sort of like, oh, and he's like, I've given you awareness. And like, from that point on, like, his power becomes the power to be aware of things, to be sensitive to things, to be in tune with things. And that totally changes like how he approaches problems and the kind of contributions he makes to fights, and, you know, and things like that. And you know, it always sort of touched me like sort of like the ultimate like human superpower. It's like, you know, because it's one that you don't really need to have superpowers to have, is like being aware and being in tune and being sensitive to what's around you, and letting it get through your filters, and letting it change you and affect the decisions you make. And it's like, yeah, you know, I don't know. It's like that, like, again, it's like that sort of like, it doesn't always have to be like, what would you do if you could punch through steel? You know, it's like, is it, what could you do if you were just like you, sensitive and aware, and in those sort of things. Um, yeah, I don't know where I was going with this.
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah.
babbling now.
I mean, like that's an excellent example though of like taking something like empathy, which is I think something that like human human society is kind of built on. Like we need to like think about and understand and like take care of each other. And so like giving somebody the ability cosmically to like know when things are happening and like and how the world is or the universe is playing out around them, and then being like so very in tune with that, like that's such a fascinating way of taking something like on a small scale and then just up into a very large one.
Yeah, man, I love Starlin. He's my favorite. He's been my favorite writer for like the longest time, you know. And it's like, yeah, it's like there's something about that. Like, you become better the more you remember that you are a part of everything around you, and it affects you and you affect it, and you know, and turning that into a superpower was fantastic. And it's like, you know, I love Jim Starlin. It's like he's very honest about the stuff. He wrote Adam Warlock for a long time, and you know, I love Warlock. It's like Warlock started off as a little bit of like sort of like a Christ figure, and I remember Jim Starlin giving an interview where he was like, yeah, it was only sort of semi-successful. He was like, you know, I don't know if Christ's story plays that well in a medium where everything has to be decided by a fist fight, you know. And it's like, you know, so it's like, you know, there are limitations to the genre, certainly, you know, it's like, but like, you know, it's at the moment that it shines, you know. It's like, yeah, every fight will still end with Captain Marvel like now knowing who the right person to punch is, but like, you know, but he knows now, you know.
Yeah.
Also, going to recommend The Death of Captain Marvel from 1981, where they got rid of that character. He dies of cancer, and it is like a really weird change up of superhero storytelling. Is like hero after hero shows up, like Doctor Strange and Charles Xavier, to try and use their powers to cure his cancer, and they all find themselves coming up against a thing that they can't fight and can't punch and can't do any, you know, like none of their powers are really useful to fight. Yeah, it's a really cool story, you know. And then he walks sort of hand in hand with Thanos into the underworld. It's really great stuff.
That's so
And yeah, check that out. It's I'm sure you can get it for like nothing in a comic book store or on, you know, online.
Freeman, did you have an answer for this question?
I mean, all of those answers I've heard are great, and I think I'm like on par with that completely. And I don't know if I have a very smart answer or any answer at all at this point.
Fair,
to be honest.
I mean,
yeah.
I
feel like you all hit the nail on the head, as it were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
sure, because it doesn't, you know, it doesn't have to be some big esoteric, you know. It's like I also like it when Wolverine stabs stuff with his claws. So
yeah, absolutely. Like that's because I was gonna say like that. There is a certain like, as much as like that, like all the big thematic stuff in, you know, that they managed to kind of weave into these stories are like endlessly fascinating to me. At the end of the day, you also kind of want to just like watch that hero do like cool shit, right? Like you just want to watch him do some cool shit. Like
yeah, like you live for like What's Up Danger blasting as like the city like upends itself as Miles falls, like, you know, down, but it looks like he's falling up, like that shot from Into the Spider-Verse, like that, you know, you live for that.
Right. I mean, isn't that one of like the great appeals of Spider-Man's, like that, you know, his action is so cool, like the swinging, the flips, the strange poses, you know, his very unique combat style with like the bouncing off the walls and sticking this stuff, you know. It's like, it's so kind of exciting to watch, you know.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just had a realization about one of the reasons that I really, really like Spider-Man, and it's because like one of the things that is most important to me in the media that I consume and in the games that I play is movement. And I was just like, oh my God, I understand now.
Yeah.
Freedom of movement.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, if you live in New York for a while, so I used to, you know, I lived in Manhattan for a long time, and it was like the idea of like being able to like swing down the avenues like Spider-Man style, it's just like you can totally see where the fantasy came from.
Spider-Man is
It's
the
just
power
like,
fantasy for New Yorkers.
yep, absolutely.
It's like, what if,
Yeah.
man, what if my superpower was I didn't have to deal with traffic? Like,
Oh my God, it's so true.
Yeah.
It's like he swings to the top of a building. There's no waiting for elevators. Just like climbs into the window
Yeah.
of the floor that he needs. Boom, there he is.
What if I didn't have to talk to that weird guy who always rides the elevator up with me every day to my apartment? Like,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
true. It's so
There's-
true.
Do have sort of an answer, I
yeah,
guess.
yeah.
I mean, I was just watching some Green Arrow today, and I think something I didn't notice before was how cool it is when Oliver Queen does an Arrow thing, but he's Oliver Queen, and he just does something that's just slightly not his normal thing.
Yeah.
That he's like he has to jump out of a window, so he grabs a chain, he like swings down like 2 floors and through another window, but he's dressed as Oliver Queen.
Yeah.
And then the Arrow music comes in, like Green Arrow music, like goes in right on the on the undertone of that. It's like, this is a Green Arrow moment,
Yeah.
even though he's wearing Oliver Queen clothes. And I just love that so much.
You know what? I never thought about that, but you're absolutely right. Like, that's such a cool thing whenever somebody's like a superhero is not in their like outfit, and then they like either use their powers or they like do something that like their like alter ego wouldn't do. It's like I never thought
Like,
about that, but that's really
one of the
cool.
great moments is like, the original Venom storyline from Spider-Man, where Peter finally gets Venom off of him for the first time. It's like, basically it's like Venom's like this evil symbiote, and it's like he wears him as a costume for a while, and it's like the way Marvel kind of sold it was like Spider-Man's got a new costume that responds to his thoughts, no more changing his clothes and blah blah blah. It just changes back and forth between clothing and costume, and can do all this. He doesn't need to refill his webbing, and it seemed really cool. And then all of a sudden weird things start happening, and it gets evil, and it turns out to be Venom, and blah blah blah. And and then he's got to go. I think I can't remember exactly how this happens, but I think he gets like they fight each other at like the top of a bell tower or something, and he gets Venom off of him, or like maybe it was Reed Richards who helped him do it or something like that. And he finally gets it off, and he's got to like leap back into combat, but now he's got no costume because like Venom was his costume. So like he basically just like throws a paper bag over his head and like cuts 2 eyes, like a big brown paper bag, and like there's like a huge like action fight sequence with like Peter just like basically I think he's like in his underwear with like a bag on his head.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
awesome.
Yeah, paper bag Spider-Man is like a famous thing.
Huh.
I'm pretty sure I have seen that. Yeah, I've seen like just some like images, like pieces of like images from that. But yeah, that's very cool.
John
Yeah.
Numa asked like a question in chat earlier, like that was, like what makes a superhero, and we kind of like have strayed on to like a little like the edges of that in like costumes. How important are they? What role do they serve? What's the deal with costumes for superheroes? Because that's a hallmark, I feel like, of the superhero genre, is a hero in costume, right?
It is, but I also feel like there are exceptions, right? Like I think we would all consider John Constantine to be like a superhero, but like John Constantine's just a guy in like a with a tie and a trench coat. Like that's his. So like it's there. I think it's important, but
Yeah, it's like I feel it's weird. It's like it depends on where you are in comic history, right? It was like Superman, ostensibly your first real superhero. It's like they dressed him, like that with the underwear on the outside and stuff because like he was drawn to look like a circus strongman. And like, strongmen in the circuses wore outfits like that. And, I think they added the cape, but like essentially it's like, it was just sort of like a way of conveying to the audience that this guy is strong. Look, he looks like a strong man you might see at the circus. And then like Batman's costume became more functional, is like he uses it to scare people, convince people he's some kind of supernatural creature, at least, in some continuities and stuff. But like Spider-Man, he just kind of does it as like a matter of flair, I guess. It's like Peter could easily just dress all in black or something, and like,
In fact, like I feel like a lot of Spider-Man stories start out with him in like a red hoodie and some blue jeans with like a ski mask,
Yeah, they always start with that, like, right, the homemade costume,
Yeah.
and it's like, and then depending on the telling, he just somehow has like an awesome costume, or they explain where he gets it from sometimes. But it was like, I sort of feel like, back in the day, like in the golden age of comics, they didn't really care about explaining stuff exactly. It was like Superman just came from another planet, so he's strong. What do you mean? How does it work? What do you mean? Why does he wear a costume? Because that's how he dresses. And then like as audiences, over the years, audiences got more savvy and started asking a lot of questions. So they had to start coming up with like, well, he gets his strength because he was born under a red sun and now he lives under a yellow sun, and when you move from a red sun to a yellow sun it gives you strength, and like, and he wears this costume because it has the crest of his family from Krypton on it, and you give it had and stuff like that, and it's like,
It's
then
not
you got to start
actually
asking.
an S. It's a Kryptonian sigil that, yeah.
Yeah, it means hope. No. Right. Yeah. And it's like, yes, it's like sort of like, audiences wanted more in-depth explanation. So it's like suddenly costumes had to start acquiring kind of meaning to them beyond just, what they visually, kind of conveyed. Batman is scary, Superman is strong. Aquaman, it's like they draw Aquaman's like little like kind of fish scales on his shirt, just like, so that he's from underwater,
Right.
It's like, years later they reinterpret them and it's like those become like armor, and it's like, but that's not what they were thinking when they made it up,
They were like, how do we convey to the audience that this guy's powers are fish powers? And we're like, give him scales.
Yep. Exactly. And it's like, there's just something striking about the superhero costume, right? Like separates them from like the pulp heroes that like predated them. It's like the pulp heroes just basically all wore suits and occasionally like like the Spirit wear like a domino mask or something. And it's like, I mean, good costume just makes a character like visually striking, because I think it's like, when you're drawn people kind of all look similar or the same, or just not super interesting on the page. It's like a drawing of Bruce Wayne is not that different than a drawing of Clark Kent, which is not that different than a drawing of Oliver Queen, so it's like, that's why like Batman wears his cowl when he's alone in the Batcave and there's nobody there to see his face anyway, because like the image of him wearing that is memorable and striking, and it's like you got the Captain Marvel shirt on right now, and it's like Carol's, that costume is just like incredible, and just, again, it's just like super striking, and just it makes the character just, more interesting to watch.
It's one of the like, it's when I'm watching like Marvel movies and stuff too, I do like, I appreciate like kind of watching the costume design for when they're in like not superhero clothes, and just seeing ways that they allude to the costume with their like when they're dressed down. I can't think of specific examples off the top of my head, but I know I've noticed it before.
Actually, Wanda is a good example with like, cause she was just in like the maroon hoodie and that kind of like,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. I remember, oh my God, this not exactly a stroke of genius, but it's like, amusingly, there was one of the later X-Men movies. They had Jean Grey wearing jeans and a gray shirt.
Oh my God.
Incredible.
Somebody
had a lot of fun with that one. You just know they did.
I really want that. I like that costume designer. I really want to go punch them on the shoulder and then like buy them a drink. Like, just be like, I hate that you did this, but also I'm so proud of you.
Picturing, so either that person is way less clever than they think they are, or they were snickering, being like, "You see what I did?"
Yeah, that sounds like either the kind of thing where somebody was trying really hard to be clever, and they just like didn't have it, or they were like, this is a really, really, really stupid joke, I'm gonna put it in there.
See if anyone notices.
Yeah,
absolutely.
One of my favorite serious examples of that is like Billy Batson to Captain Marvel, or Shazam as he is now. Like, it's like Billy Batson wears like the red shirt that's got like the yellow collar is usually how he's depicted. And then, Shazam, boom, he changes into Captain Marvel with the red with the yellow lightning bolt. And it's like just that little visual nod that these are, these people occupy the same space or are the same person, or however you read that.
Yeah. On a similar, like, same energy, Jolly Old Hub Nicholas said, I had a student a year or two ago whose name was Cal L, like the letter L, and he says, and I don't think he knew. Which is incredible. I love that. Um,
Was it Nicolas Cage's son? I think he named his son Kal-El.
oh gosh, I
Hmm.
I don't know,
I don't
but
know.
that would not surprise me. That
Oh, I
um,
think he did.
that's
Huh.
that's very on brand, I think. Very Nicolas Cage. Also, Edge of Fits is almost the about paper bags Spider-Man almost as good as Spider's Man. Is
Hmm.
Spider's Man the one that's like just like a bunch of sentient spiders that are like I don't know. There's I think isn't there something like I feel like somebody again not a comics
Hmm.
person, but I feel like somebody has explained to me the yes, thank you. Okay, that is a real thing that exists. Spider's Man is Spider's Man is like I don't know, like some like sentient spiders that like I guess I don't know any. That's as far as I got. That's the only a bunch of spiders in a Spider-Man suit. Yeah, exactly.
Terrifying.
Oh, I missed
Terrifying.
that.
That's very
Nightmares.
yes. I did know about that only because
That is nightmare fuel.
yeah. I only know about that
Yeah.
because as I've said many times, I watch a lot of actually on Dropout. So
I
uh
missed that one. I
yeah.
remember when the Sam Raimi movies came out and they gave Peter the organic web shooters
Mm,
instead of like the ones he wears on his wrists. Like they wanted to adapt that into the comic book. So like they had some storyline where like he like turned into a giant spider for a while. And then like, when he finally shifts back to his normal form, he keeps the web spinners,
whoa.
for some reason in his wrists. But like, it's like, they kind of tried to write it into the story and they gave him those in the comic for a while, although eventually they got rid of that.
Yeah, like I can kind of follow the logic on that one because there's like come on, he's got superpowers. What are his powers if he can't shoot? If the webs are like just a thing he made, like I kind
I
of
feel
get
like
it.
I feel like Raimi said something like, it just he felt like at the time it was just like too much to establish in an hour and a half long movie that like not only do you have to set up who is Peter and who's his family and who is Spider-Man and how did he get his powers, but then also to establish that this high school kid could create this incredible chemical weapon thing that like DuPont couldn't make. It's like
Yeah,
I think he said something like, in the 1960s, the fantasy that some kid with his chemistry set could make those web shooters in his bedroom kind of made
right.
sense. But by the 2000s, it sort of seemed a little bit like, wow,
Yeah,
that'd be a pretty incredible thing for him to do.
yeah,
Um,
Mhm.
but they worked it into the later movies. So,
yeah. No, that's interesting. I remember thinking when I learned that because like my introduction to Spider-Man I think was the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. Because like I
love
knew
them.
I knew of Spider-Man, but like I didn't know anything about Spider-Man until like I engaged with no Spider-Man related media until those movies. And I remember later in like when I was in my when I was a preteen, learning that in fact in the comics, Spider-Man's web shooters were actually technology that he made. I was so disappointed. That to me, I was like, "That's no, that's so stupid. I don't like that." And now I'm like, "No, that's kind of cool, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's
Mm-hmm.
cool."
Yeah, it was like the reverse for fans who knew it the other way. Like I remember everyone threw a fit that he had organic web shooters,
Yeah,
and it was like because like the idea is like the fact that he can make the web shooters, sort of symbolizes that he's super smart, and it's like, you know, part of the fantasy of Peter Parker, especially like in the time period he came from, was that like he's a super bullied geek, and
right.
it's like where Flash Thompson's like the high school quarterback hero that all the girls liked and stuff. It was like Peter was like this nerdy little kid who was like picked on by bullies and then the fantasy being is like and then he gets all this power and what does he do with it? He protects guys like Flash Thompson.
Right. Yeah. No, yeah, I can definitely I'm definitely following the logic on both counts, honestly, on like all on like it makes sense. Like I can see the thought process on in both lines of thinking there.
Well,
Um
you shouldn't get too attached to any version of these characters and
yeah.
just like
Truly.
see what any when any particular writer or director or whatever is giving you. It's like just try and you know decide if you like that spin for what it is. And you don't have
Yeah.
to like every spin, obviously. But
Truly like as you were talking about that, I was like, man, just imagine how bad it would have been had Twitter been around back then. when those movies
Oh,
came out. Just
no.
imagine.
Mhm.
Oh my god, I wouldn't want to think about it.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, that
Just
was.
imagine Tumblr. Like,
I mean, imagine what Twitter would be like if when the Tim Burton Batman movies
Oh my
came out.
god.
Those movies basically, like, you have the entire superhero movie genre essentially to thank for those movies. I think I read something like back in the day that was like Marvel years and years ago, long before the Spider-Man movies or anything, they were owned by Revlon or something, and they were like filing for bankruptcy, and like they essentially thought the company was, pretty close to worthless. And like the bankruptcy kit trustee came in to evaluate the assets of Marvel and came back with this number that was like ridiculous, like billions of dollars. And everybody was just like, what? How could that be? And he was like, well, Batman made a movie, and that movie had 4 sequels or whatever, and those sequels made this amount of money, and then you have this number of characters, and if this percentage of those number of characters can have movies of similar success, then now no tie in merchandising and blah 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 blah. And suddenly it was like everyone was like, oh. It's like I think like that was the day that they started taking the first steps towards what would eventually become Marvel Studios, which was a long road. First, they had to like license away the X-Men, license away Spider-Man and a couple of other characters to kind of get it rolling. And it was like, it was weird. It was like one of those art from adversity things where it was like they had to license away all their like A-tier characters, Spider-Man, the X-Men, the Hulk, all the best known ones. And so it was like when Marvel Studios finally got going, they were left with like Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, characters who now we, seem like the biggest gods in the universe. But at the time, everybody was just like, they're gonna make a movie out of Captain America. It's like, oh, who's going to see that? It's like it was sort of just like, good luck with that. Good luck getting that to play overseas. And it was like, oh, Thor. It was like, oh, that's gonna be weird. It's like, what is he? He's gonna talk all timey and stuff, And it was like everybody was like sort of, very on the cusp. Like Iron Man was a very B tier character, and like, and then because this is what they had to work with, they found a way to turn like all their second stringers into like the A-list, and now it's like now Marvel could do no wrong. Now it's like the Guardians of the Galaxy are getting 3 sequels that each make $1 billion. They just pick any old title off the shelf and they're like, yeah, we're turning this into something awesome.
That right there is just frankly just evidence to me. It's like it's not the reason I think this, but it is evidence to me that like I have like based on the movies that we've gotten out of DC recently, I would say that I think the secret here is for DC's success is to make a movie about anybody other than Batman and Superman. Anyone else, please. Anybody else. There's so many interesting characters out there. Anybody else. Like,
yeah.
Because the best ones, I think, the best ones and the best received ones have been the ones about not them. Like Birds of Prey, incredible movie. I love that movie. I know
Wonder Woman.
Yeah, Wonder Woman was good. There was also like I know that I'm gonna get like this is one of my more controversial opinions, but I didn't think Aquaman was a good movie, but I thought it was a pretty good like superhero story. Like it hit all the buttons for me. Like it hit what I wanted it to have. And like I enjoyed it. It was visually very interesting, very impressive, and I will say I had more fun watching Aquaman than I did watching Dawn of Justice. That's what I will say. Not that that's a high bar, but
try not to be the guy who craps on the things that other people love because nobody likes that. But it's like, it's like the Man of Steel, Dawn of Justice, Justice League thing was not exactly my tone.
Right. Yeah. That's I think that's mainly what it is. Like I'm not gonna come out and say it was a terrible movie. It was the worst thing that's ever happened. What I will say about it is that and I even said this, Freeman will back me up on this, but because he and I saw it together in the theater when we came out. I remember saying the thing that bothers me the most is that there was a good movie in there somewhere.
Exactly.
There was a good movie in there somewhere, and it just
Aquaman felt to me like it was overstuffed. Like,
Yes.
you know, they didn't know if they were going to get more than one of these things, so they were just like, all right, we're putting every idea we've got into this one. If we get a
Oh
Yes.
sequel, worry
man.
about that then. But we're putting every villain we've thought of, every scene we've thought of, it all goes in this movie.
Yeah. That is
Damn.
true. That is true. I can agree with that. I definitely remember like there was a certain point in the movie where it sort of felt like, the like we like, all right, this is the part where we get into like the final act of the film where there's like the climax and like against the big bad, and it's like, oh no, we're doing another MacGuffin hunt. Okay, cool. All right, cool. All right. Uh,
Yeah, the poor script
No.
editor is just sitting there like, please,
Please no. I'm not gonna say that you can't
just a
make
little
it happen.
bit.
Yeah.
Just let me cut a little bit.
Yeah, I sort of feel like, I mean, I dug the Wonder Woman movie, I dug the Birds of Prey movie, but mostly it's like, I think all the cool stuff for DC is going on, on television.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I was a big fan of the Arrowverse, Arrow
Mhm.
and Flash, Black Lightning, and it's like, all those connected shows. Supergirl was fantastic, and it's like, I don't know, I don't know how many people have seen it because it was, it's like locked up on HBO Max, but like Doom Patrol
I
is
love that show.
fantastic.
Yes.
If you have not seen Doom Patrol,
I, s-
find a way to see Doom
I still
Patrol.
need
It
to
is
watch the second season because I keep forgetting that I
Hmm.
haven't seen it, and then remembering at the worst possible times, like where I have no access to it, and like, uh,
Yeah, but yeah. Oh, I saw someone in chat. Yeah, shouted out Legends of Tomorrow. It was like, yes, Legends of
Yes.
Tomorrow was fantastic.
So
It's
good.
like these were shows like the whole Arrowverse, which is like they know how to have fun with it. They know how to
yeah,
like tone something, so that it feels superhero at the right moments and dramatic at the right moments, and like, it's like when they did their big, all the characters when they did their big Crisis on Infinite Earths, it was like it felt
yeah,
meaningful, like all like it's strange how like their semi TV budget Crisis on Infinite Earth, at least for me, like blew away like Justice League,
yeah,
which was like $100 gazillion
yeah.
and giant stars and stuff. It felt so much more earned,
I
and it's
feel.
like,
I mean, like having no insight into like the behind the scenes of the industry at all, even just from this end, from the consumer end of it. I feel like Crisis on Infinite Earths, like this, the CW Crisis on Infinite Earths, was a paradigm shift for DC. Like it changed, like, or it was either the beginning of that change, or like, it was part of the process to make that change happen. It definitely felt like a turning point for me when I saw that. And like, because now everything that I see coming out of DC is like, oh, we're thinking about changing up some stuff about how we do things. Maybe we're connecting these things. Maybe there's not this giant like hermetic seal between the Arrowverse and like DC stuff, and like,
hope so.
yeah.
Yeah.
I would love if that the guiding philosophy of their TV universe became a little bit more of the guiding philosophy of their movie universe. I could see they're doing like a multiverse thing, in this Flash movie.
Right.
But I don't know. I remain skeptical a little bit right now towards the DC,
Yep.
cinematic
Yep.
universe.
Hmm.
They're gonna have to earn my trust back a little
Yeah.
bit,
Yeah. Go,
But yeah,
going back real quick to what you said about Doom Patrol, because this is also coming kind of taking us back to an earlier thing that you said about like the heroes trying to think of like grappling with the idea of like what the right thing to do is. I was gonna say earlier, but like I didn't want to interrupt anybody. Um, but since we have Doom Patrol on like now on the discussion table, I think this is a good opportunity to bring it back in. Which is, I was going to say what you were saying in that instance is great. Like that idea of like the hero, the person with power, trying to figure out what the grapple with the right thing to do is. For me, I agree. I agree with you. I love that. It's even more poignant, I think, when that character is somebody who is already, even without the powers and without that situation, is somebody who is not naturally predisposed to doing the right thing.
Hmm.
I think it's even more poignant when you like. Then that's what I loved about Doom Patrol. It is my favorite type of story, which is a group of very flawed people just trying to be better, just trying to be better. That's my favorite type of story, and I
yeah.
love that
Oh,
about Doom Patrol.
absolutely. It's like, yes, there's something about watching, I mean, in real life and in fiction, there's something about people who struggle with personal issues, personal damage, people who have been, brutalized by real aspects of society or life, struggling to make their own life better, but to do it have to take on a problem that makes life better for lots of people. So it's like I can't fix myself till I fix this aspect of the world, kind of thing,
Yeah.
and it's like, and you see it in real life, it's like I'm trying to think, it's like, Rosa Parks, refusing to sit down, refusing to, go to the back of the bus kind of stuff, where it's like, a person confronting something that is a real immediate problem for them that makes their life horrible, having to change the whole world to fix the problem that is a problem for them, and it's like that's like the real life superhero,
Yeah.
and that's like tie that in, too close to the kinds of damaged people on Doom Patrol, which is obviously, a little bit different of, a story. But like, what I love about Doom Patrol is that, like, they everything is so personal to them. It's like their issues are so internal, and their issues are so, about their own day-to-day lives, and it's not just kind of like let's all just jump in the jet and go fight Thanos, or whatever. It's kind of like, like it makes those superheroes, it's like taking Marvel's heroes with feet of clay and cranking it up to 11, where it's like these heroes, forget feet of clay, it's like these are they're puddles of mud, it's like they just, it's all they can do to get through a day, and at the same time they have to take on the world for you.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's God, I love that show so much.
Yeah, it's so good. Doom Patrol is such a good show.
It really is.
God, can't recommend it highly enough.
It took me. I'm so sad that it took me so long to get into it, because I think for me the problem was I misunderstood the show. I misunderstood what show I was watching. So I watched the very first episode, and then I was like, I don't think I like this, and then didn't watch more for quite some time. And then I came back and I was like, you know what? Actually, I loved. Had I watched the next episode at the time, I would have had a very different opinion, because what I thought I was seeing was here's a bunch of fuck ups, just a bunch of lovable scamps, just being chaotic and doing whatever, and I'm like, I don't know that that's really what I want to watch. Like, just sort of.
And in fairness to you, it's like, when I have told people about the show, I was like, ride out the first episode. Yeah. Like, there is something about the first episode where you don't quite get it immediately. It's like, I often sometimes wonder if it's one of those cases where it's like, pilots are very hard to do. Yeah. Like, writing advice I've given to people is like, if you want to write a pilot, it's like, first sit down and think about what episode 2 looks like. Like, what is a regular episode of your show? It's like, just forget about having to introduce people, introduce premises, introduce, the universe. Just like, pretend all that's done. What does a regular episode look like? Yeah. Figure that out. Now go back and be like, okay, what do I need to understand to get that? And it's like, I feel like Doom Patrol might be one of those cases where it's just like, it's just such a big, strange world with so many facets to it to set up, that they kind of just had to like power through that setup episode and that introductory episode. And then once the water finds its own level, it settles into like this groove and just, becomes a kind of a totally different thing.
Yeah. Literally, I remember thinking this in the moment, like, as soon as episode 2 was over, I was like, had I just watched one more episode when I started trying to watch this, I would have realized that this was not the show that I thought it was. Like, had I given it the patience to watch one more episode, I would have gotten into it way sooner. And yeah, but
yeah, they do a great job with that one. It's like, yeah, DC is like, it's their TV stuff. Doom Patrol, I mean, Watchmen, of course, which was just amazing.
I still haven't gotten to that one yet.
Oh my God, I'm not going to say a word. I just Watchmen. Watchmen is like, it is a complete grand slam. It is one of these shows where it's like, you were like, what, they're gonna do a sequel thing to Watchmen? It's like, come on, leave it alone. It's like, come on, it's a one-off story. It was perfectly told. What could you possibly have to say? And then it was like, you walk out of that series just being like, wow, it's like, man, it's like, I haven't heard Alan Moore. Like, Alan Moore, I knew through that, spewed acid all over it before it came out. I haven't heard him comment since it's come out. I'd like to believe it's because he watched it and was like, whoa, okay, this was actually good. Now I got to shut up. It's like, yeah, check out Watchmen if you've got HBO.
Yeah, definitely.
It's so great. But also like on the other
Hmm.
side of the spectrum for DC TV, like Stargirl was pretty good too.
Yeah, I
And
really
it's
enjoyed
like it
it.
is,
Yeah.
yeah, it's about as far from like Watchmen as you can get, which is like, obviously very heavy political conscious and stuff like that. Stargirl, was the sort of lighter side of
Yeah.
things, and done with a lot of style and fun, and
I
Luke
like
Wilson's great.
what I found myself really liking about Stargirl was the fact that they gave it that, like, these are kids trying to fill shoes of people who came before them feel, right? Where but it has that feeling of, like, I think too often when people try to balance when often in a lot of media when people try to balance the whole, like, this is a story about kids but also superheroes, right? There can be a tendency to err on the side of, like, oh, they're kids, and then the whole tone of the show becomes a little bit juvenile. And I think that this show, it rode that line in cases, but it never crossed over it. Like, it was perfect. It was well done, the tone of it, and it, like, kept it compelling and interesting, and it felt, for lack of a better term, it felt colorful, right? Like, it felt like it was
Yeah,
vibrant, it was alive, it knew what it was doing, and it just felt good.
not ashamed to be superhero-y, which I like,
Yeah, yeah,
But
Hmm.
yeah, it's like I get what you're saying. It's like, it gets too easy, like, to tell stories about kid to slide into the story being kiddish.
yes,
And it's like, we've been lucky. We've actually had some great examples. It's like Into the Spider-Verse,
Mhm.
fantastic movie, where, it's a story about a kid that, is never really slides into being a childish movie. Young Justice was really well done
yes,
cartoon.
Hmm. Mhm.
Which again, tells stories about young characters. I mean, they're like, it's like their ages spanning, I think, into the young 20s by the time it's over or something. But
hmm,
like, you know, that one was just really good. A couple of others. Oh, and in the comics, for comic people, Ms. Marvel, the comic Ms. Marvel, which will soon be a Disney Plus show, but like, go read the comic first. G. Willow Wilson. It is a, again, total home run of a story. It's like, very, 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 very much very Silver Age Spider-Man. Ms. Marvel is a kid, lives with a family. He's got a kind of a power responsibility struggle, trying to, at the same time, be a regular person with a normal life, while also, having to deal with the fact that they have to rush in and save the day,
yeah,
but done, in a way that makes it feel, really this kind of like masterclass in making something feel both kind of fresh and like a throwback at the same time. Like, it feels like you're
yeah.
you're, you're reading something from the Silver Age, but also, has a lot of like relevance to modern times and stuff. Because of various aspects of her personality and her family life and stuff. And it's like, yeah, definitely check out Ms. Marvel if you're looking for like a great comic run. Just go back to the beginning of the G. Willow Wilson run.
Yeah. I saw before we
Hmm.
before we end, I did want to respond to this because Geek Out says I haven't watched the Titans live action show. Is it good? I really like it, and I know that that's not, like, the most popular opinion out there. I think that show is as unfortunately the victim of that thing that tends to happen, where a bunch of people get an like, they prejudge the show based on, like, whatever.
Fuck Batman.
Yeah, and they just
Yeah, yeah.
decide that it's bad, and then from that moment on,
Hmm.
I feel like Star Trek Discovery got a bit of this too, but, like, they just decide
Hmm.
ahead of time that they're going to hate it, and then everything that they see from that moment on becomes evidence to feed that for
Oh
them, and it's just,
no.
right. And I think that's what happened to Titans a little bit. It is very dark. It does get pretty edgy, but I think
Yeah.
it is one of those shows that is, again, the thing that I like about it. I am very predictable. What I like about it is two main things. One, found family, and two, um, it is, again, a story about a bunch of very flawed and, in some cases, very damaged people just trying to
Hmm.
heal and just trying to be better. And that's what that show is about. So yeah,
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you there. That it is a little bit darker than I wished it
yeah,
was. A little bit more, it definitely has its edgy moments, like, There's a moment where a certain character breaks like a glass window and like rubs somebody's face along the jagged glass, and I was just sort of like, well, I'm not sure I needed that, but like there's great stuff peppered in, along, with the grimdark, and one, we gotta love it because it gave us Doom Patrol. Like Doom Patrol started off as a backdoor pilot in Titans, if I remember correctly. And although it is a little bit different, it's a little weird. Like they have some different actors, and it's like sort of the episode of Titans that is an episode of Doom Patrol is like kind of like an alternate universe Doom Patrol. It's like then the one you wind up getting in the TV show, but still, I gotta thank them for that. And also, Ian Glenn as Bruce Wayne in Titans. They bring in the guy who played Jorah Mormont on Game of Thrones to play Bruce Wayne. And he is maybe my favorite live action Bruce Wayne of all time.
Good. He's
cool.
So good.
Yeah.
Like it's one of those things where I'm just like, man, this should have been the show. They should have just made Batman with this guy, It's like, but yeah, otherwise it's like, I could see people going either way on Titans.
Yeah,
so.
Definitely. It's definitely not the show that, like, if you're a fan of Teen Titans, don't go into it expecting Teen Titans. Don't do that. That's a recipe for hating the show.
Yeah, it is about as opposed to that as you could possibly. It's like somebody deliberately was like, we want to make this the exact opposite of everything Teen Titans was. It's like, and they did.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll do that. I really want to watch it.
It's I really like it, but yeah. Anyway, or Teen Titans Go, especially. Yes, Edgerfit. Okay, for real, the very last thing we do before we go off, Jake. Hi, Jake. Jake asked a question.
Oh, hello, Jake.
Slightly off topic, but has Rick ever read the run of Spider-Man where Peter Parker is inside Doc Ock?
Not all of it. Oh, that was like a whole series, right? What was that called? Like, Invincible Spider-Man, or no? My God, it's like right on the tip of my tongue. There was like a whole like series that was Doc Ock, right? Like inside Peter's body. And it's like, I read a couple of issues for it, and and they were great. And it was like one of those like, oh, I got to read this whole thing. And it's just like, I just have not quite gotten back to it, but it's like, yeah, well, oh my God, what was it called? Oh my God, right on the tip of my tongue. Sensational Spider-Man was a different series.
Superior from
Superior. That's it.
Amy. Hi, Amy.
Oh,
Hi, Amy. Hey,
of course. Yes, Amy would know. Superior Spider-Man. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, it's like very cool little series. And it's like one of those, like, Marvel got into this place a couple of years ago where like they were just kind of like, let's do crazy shit, let's just try all sorts of stuff, and just see what people like. And characters started, they started subbing in alternate versions of characters and just, doing stuff with characters that sounds like something like a fan would come up with on Twitter, it's like, and they were just like, yeah, whatever. It's like crazy idea. Let's make a run out of it. And it's like, Superior was one of those ones where it was just like, yeah, like it just turned out, it sounds like such a weird idea, but like just from the few issues I read, it's like sort of like one of those like, ooh, this is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds incredible. It sounds absolutely unhinged, but I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
I think I love it for that reason.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unhinged, so I'm here.
Like Legends of Tomorrow, for instance.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's because they've been telling Peter Parker stories since like, the 60s. And it's like, eventually you get to a point where it's like, all right, how many more stories do you need to hear about Peter Parker? So it's like, let's get some new Spider-Man, and suddenly, there's a Miles Morales. And now to the extent we still have Peter Parker, let's just start doing crazy stuff with him that we never would have done in the past, because why not? And it's like suddenly it's like, yeah, it's been really a bit of a breath of fresh air for Marvel. I think that they have sort of like opened up from their very sort of rigidly defined versions of the characters that were established in the 60s, and just started taking a lot more chances with storylines and just trying stuff. And it's not always successful, but every once in a while a real gem like that comes out of it. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, that's all the time we have for tonight. Unfortunately, honestly, I feel like this is Ramblemancy always plays out in this way, where we kind of hit our stride somewhere in the middle of the episode, and then by the time it comes to an end, we're like, we could do like 3 more episodes of just this. Like,
It's true. Part 2.
yeah, we'll have to have you back sometime, Rick, to like.
Anytime. This was a joy. This you know, it is a ton of fun to talk with y'all.
Yeah, absolutely. Same, right back at you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also,
Yeah,
Geekouts,
yeah.
thank you so much for gifting Amy a sub to the channel. Thank you so much.
And
Oh, wow. Now you're gonna have
wait.
Enthusiasm hanging out in the chats.
Oh no.
Oh, whatever will we do?
Yeah.
Also, way earlier, but thank you, Gemini, for the 1500
Oh yeah,
bits.
Gemini, thank you so much.
Gemini Lightning? No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Um,
Gemini gets around the like Streampunks adjacent like Twitch streaming TTRPG verse.
Oh,
Gemini.
hang on. I just caught something in chat out
Yeah.
of the corner of my eye. I usually keep like this iPad just in the corner
yeah.
of my screen when I do shows, and I can almost never see chat as it goes by. But so I say, no, Jake, you're my favorite.
We here at Rule of Lore love one Jake Kyle.
Who doesn't love Jake Kyle? How could you
Yeah,
not love Jake
of
Kyle?
course.
You have to.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for. Oh my God, Rose,
Okay.
sneaking
With
right
the
in
sub bomb.
with the
Okay.
sub bomb.
Oh, Rosie,
Rose,
too.
thank
Hello.
you so much. Thank
I
you.
think Rose just said, when in doubt, sub bomb
Yeah.
out.
All right. Oops. I'm sorry, Rose. Did you drop something? I think this. Thank you so
I think this
much.
belongs to you.
All right, everybody. We're gonna go. Thank you all so much for hanging out. Remember that tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. Pacific time on this very channel, I will be here continuing my Mass Effect Legendary Edition playthrough with special guest Cole Moriel, who many of you may recognize from our Waterdeep Dragon Heist show Into Deep, or from Friends Who Roll Dice, as Cole is one of the founders and staff over there, and many other places on the internet, of course. We'll be hanging out and playing through Mass Effect. I think we're going to just sort of zip right through the end of this as we've gone a little over what we...
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
As always.
Yeah,
Love
as
that.
always. I mean, I say this as if it's like a new thing, but thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us. If you want to see more of what we're doing and get updates on everything that's going on with the channel, join the Discord. Somebody will put a link in the chat.
This one?
No, Freeman. No, we're not doing this bit. We are not doing this.
Discord?
We're gonna
Oh, this
go.
one
Thank you, everybody.
is-
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. I'm going to power past you, Freeman.
I can see. I'm just kidding around. We're really hot over here. We're trying.
Rick, thank you for coming and joining us tonight. We will
Thanks
see
for
you.
inviting me.
Yeah, we'll see you hopefully tomorrow for some Mass Effect, but if not, we'll see you the next time you decide to come roll with us. Good night and good zone, everybody.